Steven Crowder, you know him from Louder with Crowder, from the posters in your post office, from the little picture on the side of the milk carton. He is over at CRTV on his set talking on the phone because he's just one of those Hollywood guys.
I don't know why they were saying no one answered me. I was sitting here for, all right. I was sitting here going, can you see me and hear me?
No, you look like an idiot.
Am I on air?
You are, and we've been laughing at you. You just look dumb.
Thanks,
and you have
I hear you. I'm sort of like, can you talk to me?
and by the way, your mug looks stupid. You should get a leftist tears tumbler. Your mug is ridiculous.
Well, we have one. It didn't withstand the crash test, unfortunately. I'm not a huge fan of asbestos with my coffee, but when I change taste, I'll let you know.
I saw you doing that, the Office Space destruction of the leftist tears tumbler.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're. We have them around here somewhere, somewhere, I believe somewhere.
So we're talking about YouTube censoring people, and you have been, I have to say, you were out far ahead of the curve on dealing with YouTube, dealing with online stuff. I remember you're talking to me on the phone before you ever went on the air and describing it to me in such detail that I thought to myself, this guy is the most boring person I have ever met. But you were right about everything. You actually put it together. Do they give you problems?
No, I am your Nostradamus now. Yeah, every now and then we get it right. And this is just a realm where I happen to know a little bit. Daily Wire, some of your people went out there to the YouTube summit, and what really bothered me about that was there were all these other think tank people out there, who were sitting there like, oh yes, YouTube was saying, there's no bias, there's no selective, suppressing of voices here. I reserve using the word censorship, even though censorship can be cultural and it can be kind of self-inflicted with YouTube. It's not government censorship. So hold your hate mail, people. Like, it's not the first. I'm not saying it's the First Amendment, but people said, we were kind of Eddie Haskell, and there was a moment there at this YouTube summit where they were talking about all these legal rights, and they couldn't answer any of my questions. Where they have this girl go up from, I think it was Next Gen News. So it's a lot of hip hop news and kind of tabloidy news. And what was so funny is she started playing a clip there at the summit. She was one of the featured speakers, and it was just N-bomb, N-bomb, F-bomb, and to the point where everyone rushed to turn down the clip. And I asked her, I said, hey, with the research of child-friendly content and demonetization, have you seen a lot of that on your videos, the adpocalypse? And she said, no, not at all.
Wow.
And I looked out at the room, and the only people who actually were allies at all there, fun enough, among many of the conservatives were the Daily Wire people, where they got it. Like, thanks for asking questions. Unfortunately, conservatives try and be polite, or they're cowardly, and they don't speak out. And then on the flip side, you have this with Joy Villa and Kara Jones. I don't necessarily know that this is proof of censorship, and I don't want to be the boy who cried censorship. When we come out and we point to, like with Facebook, legally, we were in the right. We effectively won. Nothing went to court, but we filed a petition of information. People need to go through the proper channels to correct these people. They need to snap the leash a little bit. They need to correct these social media giants because they're like children. They don't necessarily understand. But we don't want to scream censorship when it's not really happening. With Kaya Jones and Joy Villa, it seems like some people who were videotaped didn't want to be in the video. She claims she has releases. Now, we've run into that with YouTube, too. We had to go back and blur faces of people, even though they signed releases to be on video. YouTube doesn't honor the single-party consent state laws because they just don't want people mad. They typically give you a window to blur out the face or to fix the error in a video when that happens. So I need to know more about their... Yeah. She did. She blurred out the faces of the people who didn't want to be in. She blurred out
the face of the one person who didn't want to, and then they started to complain that it came back, that she was in it twice or something like that. I mean, the thing is, they do it subtly enough. It's not Jim Crow against conservative. It's more like Northern bigotry, where they just seat you in the wrong place. But they seat you by the men's room. So it's kind of like a little.
I'm looking to school. Yeah. No, you're right, and that's the issue. Is really getting down to it. And so we want to be accurate with it, but it is happening at YouTube. For example, Lee Dorn. I think Lee Dorn. He's a friend of mine. He did How the World Works. He was one of the first YouTubers, and he hasn't done a video. He just released his first video in a year. And the only reason he was spurred on to do it was because YouTube removed a video of his from a year ago. Now, I went through my channels and I got it back up. So YouTube said it was a mistake. Good on them. I want to give them credit where it's due. They did fix it. But would they have fixed it if I didn't go in
That's
and have direct context at the head of YouTube? You know what his video was? His video was about how the Japanese weren't the victims in World War II, because there was a rash of YouTube videos because, oh, we dropped the nuke and it made the Japanese people out to be these sympathetic characters, not a part of the axis of evil with the Nazis. And he explained, the Japanese also explained about their aggression, their encroachment with China. And this video was removed as hate speech. So it was a glitch. But my concern is that they have a lot of glitches with smaller channels. And so I never want to be that guy who says, well, we're unaffected, like a lot of big conservative sites. Sometimes they'll do that because we're effectively, you know, amongst the biggest conservative YouTube channels out there, and certainly the biggest comedy channel. But I don't want to turn a blind eye to a lot of other mid-size and small channels who are feeling the brunt of this. So I've always encouraged them to tweet me at S. Crowder if that's happening, and we look into it.
They have been selling themselves this narrative for 100 years, well, not for 100 years, but definitely since the 60s, that there's their opinion and then there's hate. There's their way of looking at it, and then everything else is hatred. So it's very easy for them to slip into this idea that anybody who says anything of a conservative. I mean, look at you know, this thing with Antifa. Now we got to put the accent on the T. It's on the wrong side.
Something wrong syllable. Yeah.
But it's okay if you get it wrong. They just hit you over the head with a stick. You know, here they are. They're beating people up. You know Larry O'Connor, right?
Yeah, I know Larry O'Connor. He hosts that show in DC now.
Yeah, he's a really good guy, he's a Breitbart guy, and he wrote this thing today where he was saying the media does not go around when Antifa dress up in masks and they beat people up. It doesn't go around to every Democrat and say, will you disavow these people the way they do with us and the Nazis, basically. I mean, they keep coming at us like we have some connection to the Nazis. Don't you find that kind of double standard is going on all the time?
Yeah, I think it really sucks. Here's something else. I was reading this today where it said, the LA Times said, you know, Antifa protesters prove to be problem for for left-wing activists. Yeah. And I had this realization because they'll say, you know, listen, everyone disavows right away the white supremacists or white nationalists, whoever it is, mainstream conservatives, right? But they say Antifa proves to be problem for left-wing activists. Okay, this was the headline or the subtext of the headline. Can you name me any other left-wing activism groups today that aren't associated directly with or in support of organizations like Antifa and Black Lives Matter? I mean, if you remove all the organizations that commit terrorist acts and burn down their own crap, by the way, so you remove Antifa, you remove Black Lives Matter, you remove Indivisible, you remove, you know, P-hat economics. Sorry, I know we want to keep this clean here. Unfortunately, the Democrats make it impossible when you're using the social lexicon because it's in there for me. Have you seen my paper-mache vagina? Oh, great. So if you remove all these organizations, can you think of any left-wing? Who are the left-wing activists who are having a problem? All of the left-wing activists are in support of these organizations. That's the truth. I don't want to tar and feather anyone because of a small, but it is left-wing activism. It's all it is. I
mean, even the press. I mean, it is the press. CNN said they're using violence in support of peace. I mean, that's CNN's take on Antifa. You know, thank you very much. I mean, look, you got to look. You are. I hate to admit this, but you are one of the funniest people I know, and you have to look at comedy.
That asbestos from the tumblers going to your head, Andrew.
No, it's just, I mean, you're not intentionally funny. I'm laughing at you, of course, but like you've got to look at late night comedy. I mean, this kind of drives me crazy. I look at every single comedian is a Trump hater, and their level of comedy is F Trump, and then everybody shouts how transgressive and original and creative that is. And that's it. I mean, there is nobody not one person on the other side. I mean, that's got to make you a little nuts.
Well, no, because we're the only ones, so we're really happy with it. Like, we've never been trying to compete with cable news with this show, right? It's a late night show. People who watch this is the only really conservative late night show. Like, there was a couple awful attempts where, and you know this as a guy who's been a tremendous writer, like a prolific writer for our time, writing scripts and writing books. It's got to piss you off when conservatives who've made their money in banking or conservatives who've made their money in nonprofits go, I know, I'll do entertainment now. And they just take someone and they try to make them a host. So there have been some half-hearted attempts at that in conservatism. But yeah, I mean, do you know the actual numbers, like nightly viewers for Jimmy Fallon right now? You know, the Tonight Show. Do you know what the numbers are?
No.
Take a guess, because I was surprised.
It's got to, I mean, millions, I would guess. I mean, I don't know. It's like, what would be a good audience for a show like that?
Yeah, on NBC, The Tonight Show.
The Tonight Show used to be, am I wrong to say The Tonight Show used to be in the tens of millions?
Yeah, no, you're not wrong at all.
Yeah.
Back to Johnny Carson, and then when it was the Letterman and Leno, they were 7-8 million apiece, and then towards the end of it, Leno, he's doing the bottom was 5. Fallon's getting 2 million people.
Wow.
Trevor Noah's not getting 1 million people.
Right.
So when you look at the hundreds of millions of dollars behind these people, I mean, we're incredible. We're not people who go out and talk about our numbers a lot, but we're incredibly grateful. And that's why these people are having a problem. They're losing their influence. They're losing their impact. And I know some of it is measured by Hulu. You look at these things, but when you look at like Amy Schumer's show, a good example, her last season on Comedy Central was doing 495,000 viewers in the 24-hour period. And they reran it like 3 times.
Wow.
And that includes like Cartoon Network. So these people are losing their stranglehold. So I think, we've just tried to move on past this where conservatives, they're really good at bitching and sometimes they're not really good at taking action. We've moved past this idea that like, oh, why isn't there a conservative doing it? We're just doing it and we're happy with the thing growing. We're happy with people who tune in and support the show. And pretty quickly, they're calling it the race to the middle in media. A lot of people don't really understand that. This is why you're seeing YouTube, a lot of the censorship ties back into it, because it's the race to the middle. A big portion of the success of late night shows now is measured by YouTube, actually. For some people, that's more important than their nightly viewership. And so you're seeing Samantha Bee, you're seeing Trevor Noah, you're seeing all these other shows, Conan and these shows, the sort of second tier shows. We're pretty tit for tat with them, considering that we were a show that started in a den with me and my not gay producer. Like we're pretty happy with that. Yeah, we'll take it. Like the James Cordens and those shows. What's happening is these big studios are going, oh my gosh, the capital on YouTube, they don't really make money, but their capital is their eyeballs. Their capital is their viewership, and there's far less viewership on television. So they're going after the capital on YouTube, the viewers. But the problem is viewers organically are rejecting them. Again, comparably, when you're taking into account budget, right? You might have Seth Meyers, you might have Conan have overall bigger viewership. When you add in the hundreds of millions of dollars, it's not really the same as someone who just has, a few people on YouTube. And so they're racing to the middle. They go, we know we're never going to get 15 million viewers again, or even 6 million. And the people who are doing podcasts, who are doing hundreds of thousands, they're getting up well into the millions. And then these late night shows are coming down. And it's that race to the middle. And YouTube is trying to appeal to the people, not necessarily who have the best viewership, who have the best content, but who have the most money. It's really good for YouTube to cozy up to Time Warner. By the way, isn't that funny that John Oliver, people don't talk about this, went after the Sinclair Broadcasting Group about this, about them buying up these local stations? Like, your parent company is Time Warner merging with AT&T. There couldn't be a worse, more satanic leviathan than this conglomerate. It's this unholy conglomeration. I cannot believe totally ignores it. So it's a really exciting time with media. In the sense that conservatives don't just have to complain anymore. They can do it. You guys are doing it.
That is, you're absolutely right. And conservatives are a little bit like the Jews. They can't take yes for an answer. And I think sometimes.
Whoa. Right,
that's, no, I can say
this. Head.
I can say that because I'm in Shapiro's studio, so I get a pass. All right.
Because you went with the Ed Furlong American History X hairdo. So it's about your huge hat.
I have to ask you, before I let you go, I have to ask you the all-important question. You are a mixed martial artist, by which I mean that you can actually, I think, in 2 out of 3 falls, you can probably beat your wife in a fight. And so, what did you think? What did you think of the Mayweather-Magruder match?
It went about exactly as I expected. As a matter of fact, tonight we're having a Sacred Cow cookout. We're debunking the myth of Bruce Lee. We're going to get more hate for this. And Bruce Lee, it's a total farce. The guy never fought a day in his life. He was 10 pounds lighter and 2 inches shorter than not gay Jared. Was lucky to squat. Was weak as a kitten. Couldn't fight. Didn't know anything about martial arts and was a compulsive liar. And this new film came out, right? With him and Wong Jack Man. And they're like, 20-minute battle. It was 3 minutes and they were fighting like children and none of the eyewitness accounts were consistent. So yeah, listen, right. That being said, right now I'm not trained. I have like knees like Mr. Glass from Unbreakable. So I've had a recurring knee problem surgery.
Oh, all right. Excuses, yeah.
Excuses, yeah. Now, that being said, I'm still pretty sure I could strangle Floyd Mayweather on live television. When I watch, I see Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, and it's boxing. And I didn't expect Conor to do well. I said he has a few tricks up his sleeves. We're actually going to have his coach, Coach Kavanaugh, on the show this week. But it went about exactly as, Floyd Mayweather's a slow starter. And I don't think he planned to lose the rounds. He's always a slow starter to feel it out. I don't think he planned on taking that kidney punch. I don't think he planned on getting worked at all. But he was probably giving more space to Conor than Conor maybe knew, and he was going up. He was depleting his gas tank. And that being said, I watched this fight, and it just makes me realize how dead boxing is. Right before Floyd and Conor, the audience is empty. I'm like, this is a world title match. And the guy pulled up, he's got like 19 belts, and like, you got him at McDonald's with a Happy Meal. Hey, because there's like 25 divisions. In the UFC, there's 5. No one watches it anymore. It doesn't mean it. And when the defense, here's one thing I will say. Now people are going to be, well, what are we talking about fighting? One thing I will say, if you watch classic boxing, it's much more similar to Conor's style. Now, why is that? And then people then we'll go. But this is kind of interesting as far as history, because boxing, before they got these big pillow punching gloves, guess what? You couldn't do this peekaboo guard because, see here, I can still get hit. It doesn't work when you don't have giant gloves. So that, and people, they would also break their hands a lot. So it was a lot more circling, pawing, and trying to line up a shot. Once they got the big gloves and the quadruple wraps on their hands, then all of a sudden you start seeing that punches and bunches because no one's afraid of their hands. And so it changed the defense. So you see Floyd Mayweather doing this and then working the rules, ducking down and turning his back, which is like literally 15 times in the fight. It's like, please strangle me. Please strangle the white belt. You know, blue belt in jiu-jitsu, it wouldn't even be close. So listen, Floyd Mayweather is probably the best defensive boxer that has ever lived. Leagues better than Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson in that. Not even close. Not even close. That being said, he's not even close to an adequately prepared fighter. And I'm really excited that we're in a time in history where that BS has been debunked. Just as kind of a skeptic, I know it doesn't sound political, but the Bruce Lee thing, the boxing thing, the Kung Fu thing, we know that it was all a lie, that none of it ever worked. And I'm happy about that.
Wow. I got to say, Crowder does know a lot about this because so many people want to punch him. Stephen Crowder from Louder with Crowder. It's great. It's great to see you. I never get to see you. I only get to interview you and be interviewed by you, but it's good to see you.
You ever have me on the show? I'll come anytime. But I'll come anytime. Just watch it with the Jew.
All right. I'll see you later, Steve. It's good to see you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I'm glad he didn't escape from his box and run back to the jungle before we had a chance to talk to him.